here. I'm excited about this one. This is John, and I think most of you, because I just learned your name. Sorry about that, but I think most of you might know him as Bingo the Mini, one of my favorite minis on the gram.
Yeah, hiding behind a different username on social media.
That's okay. That's okay. That's funny because my social media name for my mini was Goldtooth Cray. Yeah. And the car's name is Reggie Cray, so I had it like in the bio, like Reggie Cray, like, you know, and people were calling me Reggie, so I had to I think I put it in the parentheses, like, my name's actually Mike.
Yeah. Well, I think it's unlikely anyone's going to meet me and think that my name's Bingo, but you never know.
Yeah. Hey, it could be a nickname. It could be a nickname. You never know.
Yeah. No, I only actually discovered your profile when you sent the request to do a podcast like this, because I saw you were following me afterwards and realised that I wasn't following you. So I've been scouring your Instagram profile now for the last few days to find out more about who you are and what your car is.
I know. I go through waves of posting stuff. Usually, right now my car's in pieces, so I haven't been posting a lot of stuff. But yeah, I've been following you for a while now. That's my, as yours seems to be. My whole Instagram is mini related, so that's all they kind of shoot me in the algorithms.
No, it seems to ebb and flow a bit on what goes in and out on the Instagram profiles. Same with me as well.
We won't get into what else it suggests me, you know what I mean? I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Cool.
Well, John, thanks for being on. Like I said, I've loved your mini for a while now, following it. It's pretty fun and unique in several ways, and we'll get into that. But yeah. And I was gonna say good morning, but I think it's afternoon or evening your time. I get confused. I just try to schedule nowadays. That's the hardest part about this podcast. Yeah. Is scheduling with all the time zones and getting it to go.
No, it's just gone 4:00 in the afternoon here, so it's not too early and not too late.
All right, good, sweet. And I want to say, I don't know if you've listened to the podcast yet, but I just want to announce this. This is going to be episode 20, so that's a huge milestone, and I appreciate you for being that milestone.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's kind of crazy because it's like, dang, it's like, all right, it's been 20 weeks at least. That's kind of a lot. That's crazy. Yeah, so fantastic. Proud of myself for putting through the scheduling and keeping it rolling. It's fun though. It's fun.
Well, you're doing all the admin side of it as well, so I guess it's not just a case of recording the video and it's done, but
yeah, everything. So some episodes go really well, and I can just kind of add the intro music pretty much, and post it. And sometimes it's splice, cutting out technical issues and stuff like that. But it's fun. So. Let's jump into this, man. I'm really curious because, most of your Instagram, like I said, everyone go check out Bingo the Mini on Instagram. And most of it's, kind of after the restoration and you driving it and stuff like that. So I'm curious of, how you got into minis. Have you been into minis for a long time? And, kind of where it all started.
Yeah. Well, it actually goes back quite a few years. I think I remember when I was probably no more than 7 or 8 years old. I was looking on eBay back in those days. This is probably, right. We're talking 20, 25 years ago. Looking on eBay, looking at wrecks at the time. I was a 7 or 8 year old and thinking, I really want to buy a mini and I want to, have it as a project and I want to strip it out and I want to, restore it completely. And that's probably where my passion for the minis all started. And like with many people, I guess it was also the Italian Job film as well that really kicked it off completely. I was looking at minis back then. Fortunately, didn't buy one. I think my dad talked some sense into me and said that you can't buy a car as a project and expect to be able to do it yourself. And to be honest, based on how much work it was to get Bingo to where it was, I'm very happy that I didn't buy a mini and try to restore it back then when I had no idea what I was doing. So it's it started way back when, and Bingo's my first mini actually, which I bought in 2014, and shortly afterwards discovered that it was a wreck, which is sort of the start of the story. They all
are, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's the guy that I bought it from. He pretty much just gave it a new lick of paint before he sold it, and lots of filler and crap underneath. You don't want to get into all the details, but I'm sure a lot of people that have worked on minis know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of people, I might be lumping this in, but I feel like there's a lot that get a new paint job and then sell it off. But I feel like, are they really making that much more money by doing that? Because paint jobs aren't cheap. I mean, I guess some of them could be. I don't know. Here,
rattle cans aren't expensive.
I was gonna say, is that what happens a lot? A lot of DIY paint jobs over there.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I know that there's a lot of talented people that can do a lot with very little, but I think with Bingo, in that case, it was 90% filler and then just a quick lick of paint just to cover up everything. So when I was taking the inner wheel arches off on the front, it was probably about a centimetre, 2 centimetres, an inch thick with just filler to cover up holes.
Yeah,
so you start chipping away at that, and suddenly there's not much car left afterwards.
Yeah. When that reminds me, because when I was doing my my Mini, when I first got it, the what's it called, the A panel there.
Yeah,
they were all cut out for bigger wheels and stuff like that, and arches, and it had new wings, and I put I tacked on I made a piece to kind of match the wing, so because I didn't want the chop and put big arches and stuff like that, so I tacked it on. And it was I was learning how to, and I knew I was going to replace it down the line, but I smeared so much filler to kind of blend it and stuff like that, and then a year or two later, when I actually replaced the pan, I took it off. It was so heavy, filled with filler. I was like, that's disgusting, but I did it for my personal reasons and didn't resell it like that. So
it's a learning process with a Mini. That's the thing.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's fun.
But it's good fun to learn as well. I mean, certainly when I was restoring Bingo, I learned a hell of a lot about how a car is constructed.
So how did you find them? 2014? Were you kind of sought out to look for it, or kind of fell in your lap?
I was looking for a Mini, and I ended up went to go look at one that was blue originally. And that was, I think, a 75, 76 model maybe. And I went to look at it and I thought, this is, it needs restoration, can't buy this one. Floors need replacing, toe board's gone, front wheel, wings are gone. So I dropped that one, and before I went to look at that original blue one, I decided that I wanted to call the Mini Bingo, which is where the name came from. So the name Bingo was actually meant for a different Mini than the one I own now. And a few weeks later, I went to look at this one here that looked great, fantastic, nice pictures. Went to drive it, no issues at all, and then put an offer in for it, drive it away. And only sort of 6 months later, after anything that has to do with returns policies has expired, I realised that it was just a wreck. So that's where the restoration started. And I thought, I can either sell the car as it is now, by which point I realised that it was already falling apart, or I can scrap it, get the money for it, which no Mini enthusiast wants to do.
Yeah, right.
Or pull it apart and try and restore it as best I can, and decided to go with that last one.
So you were pretty much looking for a running and driving one, and you didn't really necessarily want I think most people at least want that. And then, so were you searching for a specific year, model, date, or?
I was looking for one that was pre-wheel arches, I think. I always like the look of a Mini, especially the 60s Minis that don't have the wheel arches with the wider tyres and the slightly more spaced wheels. So I was looking for something, I'm not quite sure when the wheel arches came in, but certainly sort of pre-90s.
Right.
And which is why I originally went to look at the one that was a mid-70s one, and then this one here, which is 1981 is what Bingo is. And it fit the bill, looked great. Was a bit of a mixed match of interior. I think the interior was originally from a British Open model, I think, with the semi-leather and tweed seats.
Gotcha.
But I thought, okay, that's fine. Just want a running and driving car, which I got, apart from most of the mechanical failures that came afterwards. But that was good fun, certainly for the first few weeks. And so I was planning little bits and pieces that I wanted to do. A stage 1 upgrade with the new carburetor needle and air filter. Maybe an exhaust upgrade, a few little things, and Yeah, small project, but something that I could use and drive around in.
You always have the modifications ready before you have the car, and then you realize, I gotta do a lot of maintenance first.
Exactly. No, it's especially in the UK, it's very easy to get hold of spare parts. Lots of people have parts for them, and a lot of people are very tempting with stage 1 upgrade kits and exhausts and things like this. So you always sort of accumulate a few things when you realise that you're going to potentially get a car.
Oh yeah.
So I think about 10% of the parts that I originally bought for it actually went on the car.
Yeah, I have a whole shelf full of parts that I'm accumulating for my Cooper S build that I acquired. So I get that. It's much harder in the United States, or I get it shipped over from the UK. But the more I've been into the scene here, I guess, and especially in Southern California, the more you realize people have like a hoard of parts that you start talking about. Oh, I have that. You want? I'm like, dude, what? Like, it's I would assume it's much more difficult than the UK, but it's always fun, kind of collecting the parts and kind of envisioning the build along those lines. Once you realize the car was kind of shitty, did you have an idea of what you like? Did you immediately realize like, hey, I want to make this like an Austin Cooper look, or what?
Yeah, it's always the Italian Job film that it's gone back to for me, the original Mark Ones, and this being I believe it's a Mark IV. I need to be corrected on that, but it's never going to be a Mark One, however much you resto mod it and put Mark One parts on it. But I certainly wanted that that look. So the first thing I really planned when deciding to do a restoration on it was, how do I convert it to a Mark One grille? Remove the lip on the bonnet and Mark One conversions for rear lights. That's quite an easy one because many spares sell the conversion panels, and I sort of just took it from there and said, I want this car to be not quite a Mark One, but I want it to look like a Mark One, be almost like an homage, but I don't want it to be pretending that it is a Mark One. So I want it to have the details, but not go full overboard and start cutting the roof off and lowering the doors and putting external hinges on and all this kind of thing, because then you're going to end up spending probably more than you would for a Mark One anyway.
Yeah,
doing that kind of metal work.
It's funny though. As many minis as I've seen and scoured through, I'm borderline obsessed with classic minis. Like, I've never owned anything other than minis or classic minis. I always get duped on Instagram because especially like yours, where you do such a good job, and then like you have to like zoom in, like, oh, it doesn't have external hinges. Damn, it looks so good. It's like, it's such a great option because it's fairly easy, and outside of the taillight conversion, right? You have to do a little bit of welding and body work, but I pulled the lip off of my hood, and I put like a van grill on it because I don't know, I thought it looked kind of cool, but it fits mine. Yeah. But I mean, it's such a great look, and I noticed too, you even have like the sliding windows. How did you kind of do that? I've never seen a conversion for that. Is that something that you can buy, or did you like mock that up, or?
Yeah, so that was there was a kit in the UK made by a company called Plastics 4 Performance. So 4 with the number 4. They still exist and do a lot of perspex conversions for racing cars, so especially rally cars, and they do everything from side windows, windscreens, rear windows.
I think I've seen them.
Yeah, I actually found them on a forum while doing a Google search on how to convert to a sliding window. And they made a kit where they had the right size windows for a Mark III window aperture, because that's of course slightly taller than the Mark I and Mark II.
Right.
And then you get with it the the runners, the locks, the metalwork that you need to convert the top of the door to accept the sliding windows. So I decided to go with that, and it works very well. There's always a bit of a risk when you buy parts that are made to go onto a later car that doesn't fit 100%, especially when it's a British car, because they have a tendency to be slightly off on some of the measurements from time to time.
Yeah. And it's hard to find parts manufacturers nowadays that everything's quality. It's kind of a, I haven't had too many bad experiences because the customer service always took care of me. But you never know. So that's cool. It looks great. I mean, that was one of the things that kind of threw me off on yours. Is I was like, well, is that the like New Zealand? Because I think they had or Australian. There's so many different variants and stuff like that. So it works really well. It's super cool. Do you like the sliding versus roll down? How's the breeze factor?
I think there's certainly positives to both. It is nice to have a rolling down window where you can put your arm out the window when you're trying to get into a car park or something and take the ticket out of the machine. But but the thing is, the Mark 1 windows are probably underrated with regards to airflow, because you can open the front, you can open the back. If you open the fronts up, even if you open both sides, it lets some air into the car. If you open both the rear bits forwards, then you end up with more or less air conditioning if you're driving on a motorway, because you can barely see anything in the car because there's so much wind coming in from the sides. It's certainly really nice and adjustable. And it's good fun.
For those that don't follow you, but you have a pretty big following here of like almost 9,000 followers. But for those that maybe don't have Instagram, and I know I have people that listen that don't have Instagram, can you describe your Mini? I know that you said it's we've kind of discussed it, 81 Mark IV originally, that you kind of Mark I Cooperized, if you will. Can you kind of give some details of what you did and kind of what it looks like now?
Yeah, sure. So it originally started life as, like you said, in 1981. It was a Austin or Leyland Mini HL, which is more or less, I think, a slightly higher version of the Mini City. Originally red, ember red, I think it was. And then when I decided to take it apart, I did all the metal work, which was a lot. Changed the front of the car, so the grille is now a Mark 1. Did the rear lights, did the interior to look like Mark 1 Cooper, so red with grey centres on the seats. Centre binnacle, speedometer, and it also did some engine tuning. So I got the original A+ block in there, but with a Cooper head, so a 12G 295 head, race valves, Piper cam, race pistons, double valve springs. So it's putting at about 59.6 horsepower, I think it was measured at.
That's a 998 then?
998, yeah. So a slight overbore to get the race pistons in there, but nothing to really change the displacement.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so nice pokey engine, plenty of torque. It's still got a 4-speed gearbox. Didn't decide to go with a 5-speed because I think there's a bit of a mixed review there. 3.44 diff, I think there is in there. So nice high revs on the motorway, which always keeps you in the power band when you're trying to get past people. But it's all about the noise in a Mini.
For sure.
Yeah, and roof light, of course. That's one of the features that everyone seems to point out when I see. Yeah, when I go to shows and stuff, it's like, why is there a light on your roof? It's one of the old Lucas Rally lights they used to use back in the 60s.
I absolutely love that light, and it really makes me want to get one. I don't know what car I would put it on because I don't know if it really fit my Cooper or my Rover that's current. Well, it's not driving right now, but I don't know if it's the route I would go for my Cooper S. But damn, I'm drawing a blank. I went on a cool little rally. I'm drawing a blank on what car it was. It was like it was like an old Alpha or something along those lines. I don't know. I don't remember, but it had a giant one on the roof, and it just looks so freaking cool, and it fits like these kind of old quirky cars. It's so that was already on the car though?
No, that was the first thing I did when I bought the car before I did the restoration.
So you put that on?
Yeah. So the first day I got it back and drilled a massive hole in the roof and fitted the lamp on the top. So that was certainly a good lesson in one of these measure twice, cut once.
Yeah, right.
Fortunately, it was in the right place, but and that's probably one of the reasons as well I decided to go with the Mark 1 look when I did the restoration, because that light would originally have been on the 60s Rally Minis.
Oh man, it fits so well.
They were banned from rallying banned from running in 66 or 67, so it was sort of get the look before that time.
Right. Man, that's cool. Where'd you find that? That's
eBay.
eBay, dang.
Yeah.
So,
Like most parts that are a bit quirky, you always find them on eBay.
I forget, I was talking to Alex Toon the other day, and eBay UK, man, because every time I type in, excuse me, classic Mini on like eBay in USA, it just pulls up like BMW Mini parts. I'm like, son of
a... Yeah. I just search for classic Mini parts and lots of stuff comes up, but
yeah. I always usually have to like message the seller, because a lot of times it doesn't have like shipping to the United States, so you got to kind of set up something different there. But yeah, man, I love that look. It's got the Steelies with the center hubcaps, the chrome bullet mirrors, and the interior is beautiful. It's it's very well done, and little bits and bobs like the light and the chrome gear knob extension, just it would fool a lot of people, I think. Even people that have minis.
It's a bit of a obsession when you get into the small details, but you have to try and keep yourself from going too far. Like I said, you don't want to start spending so much money that it's not worth doing anymore. But I did manage to fool the marshals at the mini show last year, though. I got put in with the Mark 1 minis instead of the Mark 3 Plus minis, so that was good fun.
That's what I said. Yeah, unless you're like a super nerd, and like, last weekend was the Queen's English show for us, and there's a lot of people that have minis there that just, they buy them and drive them, they love them, but they just don't quite know. Like this one guy, he had it was like I think it was a Yamaha R1 swapped mini, and I was looking at it. It had the copper or the brass hinges. I was like, what year is that? He was like, I think it's like a 61. I was like, that's a pretty like rare shell, like at least here in the United States, like those brass hinges you don't see very often. It was all kind of chopped up and stuff. I was like, it's going to be really cool. He's like, he's ripping it. It's kind of like a race car build. It's a cool car, but a lot of people don't really know the big differences between the years. So
yeah, and you could probably take the brass hinges off and sell them for a small fortune, and then you can
That's what I
buy
said.
10 sets of new ones.
He was like, he said something like, "Oh, they were kind of ratty. I was going to change them." I was like, "I mean, if you do and you end up throwing them out, just let me know what garbage can you threw them out in, because
yeah, exactly."
That's funny.
But it's quite interesting as well when I was doing the research for the restoration to see what Mark 1 features there were, what I might have to change to make things fit. If you look back at the 59, 60 model year minis, there are loads of really small details that you would never imagine would have been there, because they changed them because of faults, issues, production techniques or whatever. So if you find a shell and you see a detail like that, you're like, that's probably like a 60 or 61 mini.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of how I came about finding mine. Is someone posted the link, and it in the United States, everyone just calls all minis Mini Coopers and stuff. So that's what it was listed at, and it was just a garbage picture. And because I knew some of the quirkiness of earlier shells versus not, I was like zooming in. I was like, that might be a Cooper. Oh, that might be a Cooperette. Like you keep kind of spotting things, and a lot of people probably passed on it because it looked garbage. But yeah, that's cool. I want to jump back into, I think you said it, but to clarify, you did all the work on the car yourself, or most of it?
Not the respray or the engine work.
Okay.
Because the engine, I decided I just wanted to leave to someone that knew what they were doing. Easiest way to make sure that you don't have to pull it back out again in 6 months' time. Unfortunately, the person that I chose to do the engine, at the time I was living in Norway. It was an old racer that was recommended to me by a club in Norway. He said, we'll fix your engine, we'll get everything sorted fine. Paid him a small fortune to do it, like you do with any engine builder.
Right.
And nothing really worked. I couldn't really get the engine to start when I put it back in the car. The gearbox would, get locked in gear. So as soon as the engine got warm, whichever gear you were in at that time, you wouldn't be able to get it back out of that gear. And once you managed to get it out of the gear, you couldn't get back into any other gear, and you had to leave the whole car to cool down. So when I ended up coming back to the UK in 2017, I just said to a local specialist where I was living, just pull the engine out, find out what's wrong. I want to make sure that this is actually going to work because I spent so much money on the shell and the respray and everything that I wasn't just going to have a shell that was sitting around without a functioning engine. So I said to them that pull it apart, find out what's wrong. And they ended up pulling it apart and finding so many bad things inside the engine. There was swarf and metal flakes in the oil galleries. There was screws that weren't countersunk next to the timing chain. The timing chain was completely loose. So I spent another small fortune getting that sorted. And the gearbox, they ended up just taking off and putting a new one on because they couldn't find out what was wrong with it.
Yikes.
But it's working now, which is good.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, man, that's hard for me to. Pretty much everything I've done on my Mini, I've had I think I had some exhaust welding done for me because it's just I don't have a pipe bender and stuff like that. But
yeah,
the machine work on my engine that I did, I had done obviously because I don't have machine stuff. But it's just like I get so not nervous, but like I've heard stories like that way too many times, and it's like, man, all right, if I mess it up, it's on me. And I spent, no money on labor. And it's tough because I know there's a lot of great engine builders out there, but, it's...
there's a lot of pirates as well.
Quality and competence, I guess, is going out the window nowadays. But, well, glad you got it sorted. It looks awesome. Did you kind of just jump into welding then? Or do you have a background with tinkering on cars? Or, what's your car history like?
Yeah, not so much with welding. I'd taken apart quite a few cars before, worked on cars, but not so much on welding. So I ended up starting the welding myself and doing a fair bit, and then realising I was running out of time. So the last bit of welding I left to the people that did the respray. But there was just so much metal work that had to come out. Everything really from from halfway up the windscreen and down. I don't think there was a single panel that wasn't rotten. So some of them could be repaired, and as with most things, it's more cost efficient to switch out anything that's too far gone.
Right.
But yeah, no, it turned out well, which is the good thing, because it's when you're doing welding, you never really know until you start assembling it again whether all the mounting points and everything are going to be in the correct place, unless you have the jigs and things like this. So a lot of the metal work as well, I waited with. Putting a lot of holes in until after all the welding had been done, so that I could mount everything onto the car, make sure everything lined up, and then finish everything off and get it sprayed.
Right.
Because the last thing I wanted to do was to get the shell back from the spray booth and then have to start drilling holes in everything to make everything fit afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of funny. Like I mentioned, I've never been around any other car cultures or groups rather, but it seems like a lot of people get minis and dive straight into like learning how to weld and stuff on them. And I'm curious if other cars, like, do people do that? But I don't know. It's such a kind of it's not a very intimidating car to like work on for some reason. I did the same thing. I learned how to weld on mine, and weld, if you will,
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of people do that.
Yeah, well, it's quite an easy car to work on because once you have everything apart, it's quite accessible, and it's quite logical how everything fits together. But the problem with the welding on the Mini is that the metal is so thin that if you don't know what you're doing, you end up just blowing a hole in the metal straight away. My background before Minis was with Saabs. And you can pretty much take any setting on a welder to a Saab, and you're either not going to penetrate it or it's going to weld properly because the metal there is so thick that you have no chance of blowing a hole in it, however hard you try. But then Saabs don't really have the rust issues that Minis have to begin with either. So it's a bit of a learning curve with any car because they're all different and they all have their personalities, and that also extends to the metal work and how they're put together.
It's true. How so you were into kind of restoring Saabs, classic Saabs, newer Saabs? What?
Yeah, so I had a daily driver, a Saab 99, which was a 1982. Fun little car. Fortunately, that didn't need any work. That was something I bought in 2010. Still have the car. At the time, it had only done 5,000 miles from new, so that was a nice little find. And then I bought a two-stroke Saab 96 from 1964, which was a bit of a project. Actually, the car that I was hoping to get restored before I bought Bingo. But that's still an ongoing project, to put it that way, because some projects have a tendency to sit in boxes and drag out a little bit.
Yeah, I feel you on that one.
Always happens.
Cool. Always. Yeah, so speaking of kind of going back to Bingo, you mentioned you already had the name Bingo picked out. Where did it actually come from, though? You just like it kind of popped in your head and you were like, I want to call the Mini Bingo, or was it when you saw that blue one, it just like kind of stuck, or what?
I think the name came when I saw that listing for the blue Mini that I wanted to buy, but it wasn't so much an inspiration from anywhere. I think it was just that's going to be called Bingo. I like the name.
Yeah,
it's catchy.
Yeah. It works.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So when I got the Bingo that I have now, the red one, it had white roundels on the doors before I restored it, the stickers. Uh-huh. So I ended up saying, yes, it's a Bingo chart. It's got roundels all over it. So
there you go. there you go. I like that. No, it works. I think the little rally light, it's like kind of, I don't know, it's like the quirkiness of it. And it's like, oh, that's Bingo.
Yeah. Well, I ended up, when I first had that light on there, I fitted a 7-inch light on the top, which was way too big for the car. The one that's on there now is a 5 3/4 inch, I think, which is the smaller one that you often use for spotlights on the front of the Minis. And also reversing lights. But I put the 7-inch one on to begin with, and I was like, yeah, looks like there's a moon on top of the car. It's a massive light.
That's fantastic. So this could be Instagram kind of magic and whatnot, but it looks like you drive it quite a bit. Do you drive it once a week, daily drive it? Because it looks like you're out in the rain. It's not like a garage queen. Yeah. You're out and about driving this thing. Do you kind of weekend cruiser it or what? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, when I first restored it, up until the finished restoration in 2017, and then I would say that up until probably 2020, I would use it when when it was sunny on weekends, and just try and keep it nice and clean. And then 2020, I decided I really wanted to do a road trip with this car, and that's when we decided to drive to Norway through Europe all the way up. And I think during that trip, we went in, I think it was July until around about August, September time, and we did, I think it was 5,000 or 7,000 miles in total in 3 months.
Wow.
And that, of course, was with all kinds of weather. I mean, you can't expect to plan a trip to Norway, to Scandinavia, and expect it to be 30 degrees and sunshine the whole time.
Right.
Yeah, so that was sort of the start where I decided that, you know what, this car is probably more fun to drive in the wet than it is when it's sunny. Hit a roundabout, it's nice and slippery, great fun. And since then, I've taken the car out of storage in sort of April time, and then drive it as a daily driver all the way through till September, October, sometimes to November, when they start salting the roads. So, good 5-6 months of the year I'm driving around in the car as a daily.
That's fantastic. I love that, and I work from home now, and when my car was, I sold my daily driver, which was a newer Mini. That actually looked like Bingo minus the roof light. It was red and black. It was, but yeah, I sold it, and so if I wanted to go out and about for whatever it is, I would I'd make up excuses to go to the grocery store. I'd take the Mini, and it's just like it's not as bad as people think. I feel like I don't know. Maybe I'm more obsessed, but I took it on a road trip. It was the best and most brutal thing I've ever done, but I was kind of on a timeline. But you said you did it over a couple months. Tell me about that. You just kind of leisurely did this road trip, or what?
Well, it was a hard start to the road trip. We drove from the UK, took the Channel Tunnel across to France, which is a train.
Right.
And then we drove all the way from France up through Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, all the way up through Denmark, and then took the ferry from Denmark to Norway. And that's a pretty long journey. And we completed that in 2 days. So that was just hit the road, motorway. And it was great fun. And then when we got to Norway, we were like, we need a week just to sort of get our hearing back, stop everything vibrating inside our bodies. So we drove all the way up and drove around in Norway for a good few weeks, few months. And we just used it as a daily driver in Norway and took trips to visit friends, family, all over the place, however long the journey was, and then drove it all the way back again to the UK. So I think 10,000 kilometres in total is what we ended up covering. About 7,000 miles, 8,000 miles.
That's epic. Yeah, my road trip was about 3,000 miles round trip. Up to Idaho, then back down the coast. Did you have any concerns leaving? That was like the big thing. People are like, "You're crazy! Like what if you break down?" I was like, "There's tow trucks for that. Like, it's not like I'm going in the middle of nowhere where there's. I mean, I guess parts of the country are in the middle of nowhere, but it's not like it's where no one can get to you." Did you have any concerns? Did you pack a bunch of tools and spare parts?
I packed some vital spare parts. Packed a bag of tools that I knew I might need, but. I guess when you're heading off on a trip, you just don't know if something's going to happen, and it's always going to be in the back of your head. But if you don't try, you don't know.
Exactly.
Fortunately, everything was fine. I had to replace the starter solenoid when I got to Norway, because I replaced that before we left with a new one, just in case the old one failed. And got to Norway and the new one failed. So I put the original from 1981 back on, and that's still working fine.
Of course, yeah. Right?
But no, apart from that, and some small tinkering here and there. I think I did an oil change when I got to Norway, because I had then covered almost my service interval.
Yeah.
And then, of course, another oil change when we got back to the UK afterwards. So
that's fun.
I had 2 5-litre things of oil with me, and oil filters and everything, all in the boot. So 50% luggage, 50% service items, and just hit the road. Off you go.
That was like me. I got one of those like little kind of little jacks from like Walmart, and I had that under the seat, and I had my tools and my oil and my luggage, and it would just hit the road, man. That's so fun. I mean, knock on wood, I plan on doing another one soon, but I didn't have really any issues either. The only issue I had was I literally had just finished I was on a timeline to go to this rally that I signed up for.
Yeah.
And I had just finished rebuilding the engine and putting everything back together. So I was still kind of in the testing phase. So I had also redone all the brake lines and the clutch lines. So my master cylinders kind of like were failing. So I was like swapping master cylinders right before I left. So I had like bleeding issues the whole time, but it never like stranded me. I would just have to, I had to stop and kind of bleed the nipple a little bit on the side of the road, but I kept going, man. I still had brakes. It was better than not having brakes, I guess.
No, absolutely. But the thing is, with old Minis, you can fix it with a spanner and a screwdriver. You don't need a laptop and plug it in and then be a computer engineer to figure it out afterwards.
Yeah. Oh man, some of the best moments of my life. Here, I have this here for the people that are watching here. This was the rally. When I was like, oh man, I'm not gonna make this rally. I'm still trying to finish the engine. They like dropped like the artwork for it, and my car's on there. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, now I have to go. I gotta make it, but it was epic. It was a fun time for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much a personal invite when they put your car on the brochure.
Yeah. That's fun. I mean, I don't know. Is it something that you see a lot of Minis kind of daily driving over there, or any of the countries that you kind of went to, or classic cars in general? It's something like in Southern California, it's hard to not go a day without seeing some sort of classic car, mostly American kind of 50s, 60s kind of hot rod type of stuff here in SoCal. But you almost always see a classic car here. So I'm curious in the UK or Europe in general, in your whole road trip, do you often see stuff like that, or?
Well, certainly during the summer months. So from May until October, there's people that use their classic cars quite often.
Right.
But It's not so much with minis though, because I think a lot of people now have gone away from using a mini as a as a run around, as a cheap car, and a lot of people are now putting money into restoring them and being proud of them. But when you go to shows and things, it's incredible how many minis show up. Even if it's a non-mini car show, you can be guaranteed there's always going to be a handful of minis there.
Right.
But there's a nice variation. The nice thing about the UK is that there's a massive pool of different types of cars.
Right.
Not necessarily just British ones, but you see a lot of Japanese classics. You see a lot of American classics, hot rods, and people use them, which is the nice thing. Of course, once you get into the old, 1950s Bentleys that cost about £5 million each or something, then you don't see very many of those driving around. But you certainly see people driving around in Austin Healey's, Morris's, old Rolls Royces, Jaguar E-types, all these kinds of things. I don't know how it is in the US, but it's always nice to wave to someone when you see them coming the other way.
Well, the thing about the U.S. as a whole is, it's a big ass country. So, growing up in Texas, I'm not too sure if you're familiar with the states, but Texas is big trucks and American hot rod kind of stuff. And I never really saw a ton of European stuff in terms of classic cars like that. But being in Southern California, it's like, dare I say, the mecca in at least the United States of cars, and being in the scene and going to a lot of shows and meets and whatever, I see a lot of ridiculously crazy cars that are really rare, $1 million cars just out at a local meet in Malibu. And I was with a friend the other day at that meet, and they're like, "Oh shit, look at that!" And I was like, "Oh, I've seen that like 15 times already." Like, it doesn't like, it's like you see like McLarens and Lamborghinis and all this stuff, and then you'll see the Countaches, and you see this kind of stuff, and it's kind of like I'm like jaded by it, and but when I see like a really rare like European car or something like that kind of excites me, because you don't see that as much. But like I said. I go to this one past weekend, it was Queen's English, so it's all British cars. They do a Italian and French one, and there's a lot of really cool, rare cars, but it's, I don't think it's very common in the United States. I think it's more so Southern California somehow pulls this off here.
Yeah. I mean, with the States, you see that there's a lot of modified classic cars, or is there a lot of originality as well? Because from looking on Instagram, it looks like lots of people like to customize their classics rather than keep them original.
Yeah, I think that's the American way. They think they can do it better. I think that's just kind of how the internet's going, to be honest with you. So people see it on the internet and they want to modify it. And I get it. I like modifying, but I'm into the period modifications. I want to keep the A series. I want to do the upgraded carbs, but in a period manner. I think there's a good split. I think there's a lot of really well done restorations that are just, very period correct. And then there's like I said, the 61 Shell that has an R1 Yamaha motor in it, and that, it's super wide with like sport pack flares on it. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, it is, I'm glad the guy saved that Shell, because that Shell probably would have gone by the wayside because it was at some random junkyard. So it is what it is. But I think it's a good split. I think at least, like I said, going to these shows, you see all aspects of it. You see the crazy one-off builds, and then you see the perfect period car. So it's a little bit of both. What about over there? A lot of just straight restorations?
I was actually thinking about that while you were saying it, with the Mini with the brass hinges and the Yamaha engine. I think the Mini is probably the only car that I can think of where you're more likely to see it modified and customized than any other classic car over here. You go to a classic car show, and the handful of Minis that you see, most of them are probably going to have bucket seats and wide flares, massive chunky tires, and all these kinds of things. And then it's maybe the ones in between that have the original 145 tyres and 10-inch wheels,
right?
And completely standard. But it's probably just because the Mini is so easy to customise.
Yeah.
And make your own. And it's kind of a bit modular as well, so you can bolt on the bits you want, and then you can pick and choose what you actually want your car to look like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things with the Mini is that they also made so many of them. So it's people I feel like don't feel as bad, chopping them up or whatnot, especially if it's a later model, I guess. But
they
made
few changes between 59 and 2000.
Yeah. To the person that just wanted to get into a Mini, like they're just going to buy whatever shell if it's a good deal or what. This guy didn't realize the difference between it, and I don't personally care, but if I had that shell, I wouldn't do that. But I knew, but that's fine. It is what it is. But my uncle, he's big into British Fords and Lotus and all that kind of jazz, and he he's a bit of a purist in terms of that. So if I ever kind of got into that range, he'd probably kick my ass. But he runs a engine build shop, and he's all about modifying his cars, or to an extent, but it's all period stuff. It's super cool, like like I said before, kind of style. So
so cafe racer look.
Yeah. He rips on them and builds out the engines and all that jazz. But then he has some that are just mint period cars that look good, drive, they're fun. So it's kind of a tough one.
Yeah, I think it goes to a point where you do too much and people start wondering whether it is the original car or not, and how much you should actually have preserved it. But at the end of the day, it's your own car and you can do what you want with it. But it's nice to
100%.
It's not just for yourself when you drive a classic car, because when you drive around, you can see lots of people are enthusiastic and happy about seeing it as well.
Yeah.
So,
like my Cooper S I got, and it's a shell, and it came with majority of the parts, but it was a race car here in Southern California that I'm really trying to dig up the history of. But and I don't know if they did it a whole lot over there, but I think it was like kind of a 70s, 80s things maybe. They de-seamed it, the vertical de-seamed at least.
Yeah.
So, it's de-seamed, and everyone was like, you got to put those back, and I've gone back. I would prefer if the seams were on there, but it's kind of part of the car's history, and I kind of want to restore it to make it look like a United States, California race car. So I don't know, it's a tough one, and people are not getting pissy, but they're looking at it like you need to bring that back to its perfect, like it rolled off the showroom floor. I was like, but that's not its history, it went through some exchange of hands, and I think it'd be cool to obviously make sure it's structurally sound, but make it look like a cool race car. I mean, that's what it was.
Yeah, and you probably find that trying to reinstate the seams would probably be removing more of the originality, because it's not just a case of welding the seams back on. You probably have to end up changing a few of the panels to make the seams come back again.
Yeah, I had a buddy that did it, and he said it was a big pain in the ass, but his turned out great, and I started the whole process, but it's just like the panels, you could get like the little seam strip and kind of like make that into the new seam, but it's like you said, the metal's so thin, and it was just I started and I was like, no, I don't think I can do this. Either I'm going to give it to somebody to do it for me, or I'm leaving it. So we'll see.
Well, you're almost better off leaving it, because you have two arguments for it rather than the one of just reinstating the originality. So
exactly. Well, John, I'm not sure, like I said, if you've listened to too many episodes or any at all, but we do a nice little segment on here called the Paddy Probe. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not, no. So what's this about
then? It's I have a series of questions here that they could be rapid fire, or we like I said, we always tend to elaborate on them a little bit, but they're just kind of, if you will, controversial questions in the Mini world here, and I just kind of rapid fire them at you.
Okay.
All right. The first question on the Paddy Probe is, what is your favorite Mini variant?
Cooper, 60s.
All right. Easy
Mark
enough.
1, to be specific.
I get you. Let's see. I think I assume now, but is Bingo your one and only Mini? Have you owned any more Minis?
No, that's the only one.
Only one.
Apart from a remote control Mini I had as a kid, but I guess that doesn't count.
What is your your favorite Mini modification? Either one that you've done already or one that you plan on doing in the future?
Ooh, probably engine modifications. Not going overboard with power, but just making it a bit more spritey. A bit more power. It's always fun.
Yeah. And you have dual carbs on yours, right?
Yeah, HS2s.
I was going to say the twos. Two
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah, so the engine builder that built it originally in Norway, he put HS4s on there, which completely killed the engine because it just wasn't set up for it. It wasn't at that level of tune. Yeah.
Yep. Since your favorite Mini is a Mark 1, I'm assuming your favorite wheel size is 10-inch.
Yep, correct. With skinny tires.
Do you have the skinny tires? Do you have a favorite wheel model?
You thinking about the rims themselves?
Yeah.
Probably the Steelies. I really like the Steely wheels.
So underrated, I think. It's hard for people to pick Steelies, but man, they look so damn good on Minis and classic cars in general.
Yeah. Now, the ones that are on Bingo are actually cast aluminium ones. So they're lightweight Steelies.
Oh, cool. So those are like the new kind of repo ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, they look good. They look real good. I was thinking about doing that on the S just for a little bit of lightness. Like I said, I do like period stuff, and if I came across some actual Cooper S steel wheels, I'd probably get them. But it'd be cool to have a set of the alloy wheels like that too, huh?
Yeah. Well, originally when I did the restoration, I bought before I bought the car, of course, I bought 4 3.5-inch Steelies, the original ones, but repro, so not lightweight ones. And I ended up with vibrations in all 4 wheels, and it turned out that the ones that I bought were on sale because they were B-stock, because they were impossible to balance. So ditched those, and then I just went with the 4.5 by 10 lightweight ones. Yeah. So if you look back at the pictures on the profile, any ones that have sort of the old cream coloured Steely wheels, they're the original 3.5 ones. And then from sort of, I would say, May 2020 onwards, that's got the whiter ones, which are the lightweight ones.
Oh, yeah, they look good. What has been the most pain in the ass job when restoring your Mini?
Probably replacing the original 3-core radiator that I put in after the restoration with a 2-core one. Because any engine work involving a radiator on a Mini means that you have to, bandage your whole arm afterwards, to avoid yourself bleeding out. It's a pain in the ass. It's a horrible job.
It is. I'm not sure anyone said that one yet, but it's such a pain in the ass job, the radiator.
It's probably because people just leave them and say, you know what, just not doing it.
Yeah.
But definitely, if I can recommend an upgrade, go with a 2-core super cool radiator over a 3-core standard.
Okay, cool.
Big help.
If you could have a drink, coffee, beer, tea with one Mini celeb, who would it be?
One Mini celeb. Probably a bit late to the party, but Paddy Hopkirk would be a good one to drink with.
Yeah. We've had a few that said Paddy, but I mean that's I can't fault anyone for saying that because that would be a damn cool time. Yeah. I'm drawing a blank on who it was, but somebody did have tea, I believe, with Paddy Hopkirk one time, which is kind of cool. So
yeah.
Let's see. If you could change whether like something about your specific Mini or Minis in general, like go back and with Alec Isagonis and like design something different about the Mini, or like I said, change something specifically about yours, would there be something that you would change?
The first thing that comes to mind is I would like it to be possible to actually insulate a Mini for sound. Because when you're driving on long road trips, when you're doing 10,000 kilometers, it would be nice to have the luxury of not having to wear earplugs all the time.
Yeah.
But it's just the design of the car being pretty much a shoebox. There's a limitation to how much insulation you can fit and make efficient in a Mini. But it would be nice to make, have a Mini that's nice and silent.
That would
when
be
you
really
want
nice.
it to be.
Yeah, mine's loud as shit, and it's I think it's. I've been in others that are quieter, but it's man, that'd be a tough one.
Yeah. The thing is, when you fit twin carbs and sports air filters, and you fit a RC40 exhaust with just a single box on there, you're pretty much asking to have a bit of an earache after you've been out for a drive. But it's good fun. But when you're driving for a long time, it's you're looking forward to having the nice noisy car when you get there on the mountain roads. But in between, when you're driving on the motorway, it'd be nice to have the luxury.
Yeah, cruising isn't the most pleasurable. Yeah.
No, well, the thing is, when you're on the motorway at 4,000 RPM for 7 hours, good fun.
I feel you. Yeah. When I did my road trip, it was this heat wave that came through, and it was in the hundreds. So I had to have both my windows all the way down, blasting at 3,000 to 4,000 RPM.
Yeah.
Wind blowing in, and it was just loud as hell in there, rattling. Oh my God. When I got out, I was like, had like vertigo from just being so damn dizzy and vibrating the whole time.
End up with tinnitus or something.
Yeah, it was rough. Thankfully, I was so tired that I just knocked out. But yeah, man, that was rough.
Yeah. The nice thing about driving a Mini for a long time, though, is you don't get the wallowing feeling when you sit down afterwards, because you don't get this kind of feeling in a Mini. It's more of a shock.
Yeah. Last one here. Yeah. What is your favorite Mini color?
Well, Bingo's tartan red, so I'm kind of obliged to say that one. But I think if I were to respray Bingo, I would probably go with almond green with an old English white roof.
Yeah. Such a great color. I mean, I threw that one in there, but it's a very tough one. One, because there's so many Mini colors, and two, there's so many good ones.
Yeah.
So I like both those answers. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, John, I appreciate you being on here. And again, everyone go check out Bingo the Mini. Do you have any other updates or anything coming in the pipeline or anywhere else you want the people to check out?
No, there's just that profile there for the Mini. But we are planning to go back to Norway again this summer. So another 10,000 kilometer road trip.
Oh, I look forward to that. You need to live stream it or something.
Yeah, I'll try to.
Do you need to make like a little YouTube series out of it or something?
Yeah, I probably should do. I missed the opportunity to do that the first time around, so maybe I'll try that now. But slightly shorter drive through Europe this time, fortunately.
Yeah, when I did my road
ferry.
A lot of people were like, "Oh, you need to film it and blah blah blah," and I thought about it, but I was like, I want to enjoy it. But the second time around, maybe I would film it. It would be kind of a fun little memento. So that's cool. I look forward to watching you, at least updates on Instagram. So again, thank you for being on, and I will catch you guys on the one.
Thanks for having me.